My brother-in-law thought he could borrow my wife. He found out what betrayal costs. I was sleeping with my brother-in-law's wife when my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, my own wife of 8 years. Kids are asking when daddy's coming home from his business trip. I was 3 miles away at a motel, buried in sheets that smelled like cheap detergent and Katie's perfume, and I felt my stomach drop through the floor. It started 6 months ago at my brother Jake's birthday party. Katie cornered me in the kitchen while I was getting another, pressing close enough that I could smell her shampoo. "You know," she whispered, "Jake never looks at me the way you look at Sarah." Her hand brushed my arm, and instead of stepping back like a decent human being, I let myself imagine what it would feel like to be wanted like that again. Sarah and I had been going through a rough patch. Nothing dramatic, just the slow erosion that happens when you stop trying. She was tired from chasing our 2 kids around all day, I was burned out from work, and somewhere along the way we'd become roommates who occasionally had on weekends. Katie made me feel like I was 25 again, like I was worth pursuing, worth risking everything for. The first time was supposed to be just talking. Katie texted me saying she needed someone to vent to about Jake, and I met her for coffee. 2 hours turned into 4, and when she put her hand on mine across the table, I didn't pull away. "You understand me," she said, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Important. Desired. Alive. Coffee became drinks. Drinks became long conversations in her car after I'd told Sarah I was working late. Late nights became afternoon meetings when Jake was at work and Sarah thought I was running errands. Each time, we told ourselves we were just talking, just friends who understood each other. But we both knew where this was heading. The line got crossed 3 weeks later in that same motel room where I'm typing this now. Katie had been crying about Jake again, how he never listened, never saw her as anything more than the woman who cooked his meals and washed his clothes. When I reached over to comfort her, she kissed me, and I kissed her back like a man dying of thirst. Afterward, lying there while she traced patterns on my chest, I felt like I'd stepped through a door I could never walk back through. "This can't happen again," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I was already planning when we could meet next. Now it's been happening for months, and I'm living this double life that's eating me alive. I go home to Sarah making dinner, help my 6-year-old with homework, read bedtime stories to my 4-year-old, and the whole time I'm thinking about Katie's laugh, the way she looks at me like I hung the moon. Sarah trusts me completely. When I say I have to work late, she brings me leftovers to the office. When I say I need to run errands, she kisses me goodbye and tells me to drive safe. The worst part isn't the lying. It's how easy it's become. Last week, my daughter Emma drew a picture of our family for school. 4 stick figures holding hands in front of a house with a crooked chimney. She made me extra tall and gave me a big smile. "That's you, Daddy," she said, pointing to the figure with pride. I hung it on the fridge and felt like the biggest in the world. Katie keeps talking about leaving Jake, about us running away together. She's got it all planned out in her head. We'd move to another state, start over, be happy like we deserve. But when I think about explaining to Emma and little Marcus why Daddy doesn't live with him anymore, why they only see me every other weekend, I feel sick. I told myself I could handle this, that I could compartmentalize. Keep Katie separate from my real life. But it's bleeding through everywhere now. I'm distracted at work, distant with the kids, and Sarah keeps asking if I'm okay. "You seem so far away lately," she said last night, curling up next to me in bed. I almost broke down and told her everything right then. Instead, I kissed her forehead and said I was just stressed about work. She believed me because she always believes me. That trust is going to destroy her when this comes out. And it will come out. These things always do. The crazy part is I love Sarah. I love our life together, our kids, the house we bought 3 years ago with a big backyard where Emma practices soccer and Marcus builds dirt castles. I love Saturday morning pancakes and family movie nights and the way Sarah still reaches for my hand when we're walking. But Katie makes me feel like the man I used to be before mortgages and parent-teacher conferences and arguments about whose turn it is to take out the trash. With her, I'm not just Emma and Marcus's dad or Sarah's husband. I'm just me, and that feels like oxygen after I've been drowning. I know I'm being selfish. I know I'm destroying multiple families for what amounts to an extended midlife crisis. I know that Katie probably isn't the answer to whatever's broken in me. But knowing something and feeling it are two different things, and right now, feeling is winning. The motel room is spinning a little as I type this. Katie's in the shower, humming some song I don't recognize. In 20 minutes, I'll drive home to my family and pretend this never happened. Sarah will ask about my day, and I'll lie with the practiced ease of someone who's been doing it for months. Tomorrow, Katie and I will probably do this again. And the day after that. Until one of us gets caught or gets brave enough to end it. But right now, listening to her humming through the bathroom door, I can't imagine stopping. The phone buzzes again. "Sarah, dinner's ready when you get home. Love you." I stare at those 3 words until they blur together. Love you. She means it. She always means it. And I'm throwing it away for something that feels real but probably isn't, for someone who makes me feel alive while I'm slowly everything that actually matters. But I'm going to text her back "love you too" and drive home like nothing happened. Because that's what cowards do. The knock on my apartment door came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday in March. I knew before I opened it that my world was about to implode. Jake stood there with printouts of hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and screenshots of texts between Katie and me that I thought I'd deleted. His face was a mask of controlled rage that scared me more than if he'd been screaming. 2 years, he said, stepping past me into the cramped one-bedroom I'd been renting since Sarah kicked me out 6 months ago. 2 years you've been sleeping with my wife. I found out later that Katie had left her laptop open to our message thread. Jake saw everything. Every "I miss you." Every "when can we meet?" Every detail of our affair laid out like evidence in a courtroom. The same technology that let us sneak around had documented our betrayal in timestamps and read receipts. Jake, I can explain. Explain what? How you looked me in the eye at Christmas dinner while you were screwing my wife. How you helped me move furniture into the house where you've been meeting her. He the papers at my feet. Explain how my own brother could do this to me? The worst part was he didn't hit me. I almost wished he would have. Physical pain would have been easier than watching this man I'd grown up with, who'd been my best man at my wedding, who'd taught my kids to ride bikes, look at me like I was something he'd scrape off his shoe. He sat heavily on my couch, the same one Sarah had let me take when she divided up our life. Do you know what it's like finding out your wife has been in love with someone else for 2 years? Not just sleeping with them, but actually in love? I didn't know what to say. Katie had been telling Jake she loved me while I was still going home to Sarah every night, still pretending to be a husband and father. I'd compartmentalized so thoroughly that I never really processed what this was doing to anyone else. She's leaving me, Jake continued. Wants a divorce. Says she never really loved me, that she was just settling. His voice cracked. 23 years of marriage, and she was settling. 23 years. They'd been together longer than I'd been alive when I first met Sarah. I'd helped destroy a marriage that was old enough to drink. The kids know, he said, and I turned to ice water. Emma came home crying yesterday because some kid at school said her daddy was sleeping with her uncle's wife. Sarah had to explain why you don't live with him anymore. I collapsed into the chair across from him. Emma was 8 now, old enough to understand that daddy had done something terrible but not old enough to process why. Marcus was 6 and kept asking when I was coming home, not understanding that I never was. Sarah's not doing well, Jake said, twisting the knife deeper. She's barely eating. Mom has to come over every day to help with the kids because Sarah can barely get out of bed. The woman who used to run marathons can't make it through a grocery store without having a panic. I'd seen glimpses of this during our supervised visits. Sarah looked hollow, like someone had reached inside her and scooped out everything vital. She'd lost 20 pounds she didn't have to lose. Her friends had stopped calling because she wouldn't leave the house. The kids asked me why mommy cried so much, and I had no answer that wouldn't make me more of a monster. You want to know the best part? Jake's laugh was bitter. Katie's been planning this for months. She had an apartment picked out, a lawyer on retainer, divorce papers ready to go. She was just waiting for the right moment to everything up. That hit me like a freight train. While I was agonizing over every meeting, every lie, every betrayal, Katie had been treating our affair like a business transaction. An exit strategy. I was her ticket out of a marriage she was done with, and I'd been too unselfish to see it. She doesn't want you anymore, by the way, Jake continued. Funny how that works. Once you left Sarah, once you were actually available, Katie suddenly wasn't interested. Says she needs time to find herself. I'd learned this the hard way 3 weeks ago when I'd finally worked up the courage to ask Katie if we were going to try to build something real together. She'd looked at me like I'd suggested we rob a bank. I think we should take a break, she'd said. This whole thing has been so intense. Intense. 2 years of destroying our families, and she called it intense. You lost everything for nothing, Jake said, standing up. Sarah will never take you back. I guarantee it. Katie's moved on. Your kids think their father is a liar and a cheat. And me? You're dead to me. He walked to the door, then turned back. Mom wanted me to tell you not to come to Christmas. Or any family gathering. Ever again. You chose Katie over all of us, so now you get to live with that choice. After he left, I sat in my empty apartment and really looked at what I'd accomplished. I'd traded a life with meaning, a woman who loved me unconditionally, children who thought I hung the moon, a family who welcomed me into every celebration, for what exactly? For feeling desired by someone who was using me as an escape hatch. For the thrill of secret meetings and forbidden touches. For the ego boost of being chosen over someone else. For a few hours a week of feeling like I was 25 again instead of accepting that I was 42 with responsibilities and people counting on me. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through old photos. Sarah laughing at something I'd said during our anniversary dinner 2 years ago. Emma missing her front teeth, grinning at the camera on her first day of school. Marcus asleep on my chest during a Sunday afternoon nap. Jake and me at his 40th birthday, arms around each other's shoulders, smiling like the brothers we'd been our whole lives. All of it gone. All of it sacrificed for something that wasn't even real. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of my upstairs neighbor's TV. No little feet running around. No Sarah humming while she cooked dinner. No bedtime stories or Saturday morning cartoons or arguments about homework. Just silence and the crushing weight of understanding that I'd had everything a man could want, and I'd thrown it away because it didn't feel exciting anymore. I thought about calling Sarah, begging her to take me back, promising I'd change. But I'd already tried that. She'd listened patiently to my apologies and explanations, then quietly said, "I can't trust you anymore. I look at you and see someone I don't recognize." The trust was the thing I couldn't fix. I could say sorry a million times, could go to therapy, could promise to be better, but I couldn't give her back the security of knowing her husband would never betray her. That was gone forever. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Katie. "Jake told me he went to see you. I'm sorry about how this all turned out. I hope you understand why we can't see each other anymore." I stared at that message for a long time. She was sorry about how it turned out. Like we'd tried to bake a cake and it had fallen. Like this was some unfortunate accident instead of the predictable result of two people choosing their own temporary happiness over everyone else's well-being. I deleted the message without responding. What was there to say? That I'd destroyed 2 marriages and lost my children for someone who'd already moved on? That I'd given up everything real for something fake? Outside my window, I could see the house where my family used to live. Sarah had kept the Christmas lights up even though it was March, probably because taking them down felt like too much work when just getting through each day was a struggle. The house looked exactly the same as when I'd lived there, but I wasn't welcome anymore. I was 37 years old, living alone in a studio apartment, eating takeout for dinner while my kids wondered why Daddy didn't love them enough to stay. This was the dream I'd chased. This emptiness. This isolation. This crushing understanding that I'd had paradise and traded it for nothing. 18 months later, I'm sitting in a Denny's at 2 a.m. on Emma's 10th birthday, watching a couple argue about who's going to drive home. I've been here for 3 hours because I can't sleep, and my apartment feels like a tomb when the rest of the world is dreaming. Emma's birthday party was today. I wasn't invited. I know because I drove by the house and saw the bounce house in the backyard, heard the sound of children laughing through my rolled-down window. I parked at the end of the street like some kind of, watching strangers' kids play in the yard where my daughter was celebrating another year of life without me. Sarah remarried last month. His name is David, and he's everything I wasn't. Patient. Faithful. Present. The kids call him Dave, but I heard Marcus slip and call him Daddy during our last supervised visit 3 months ago. That was the day I stopped asking for more time with them. Marcus doesn't even remember me properly anymore. He was 6 when I left, now he's 8, and I'm just the man who takes him to McDonald's twice a month and asks awkward questions about school. Emma remembers, though. She remembers everything. The way she looks at me now, like she's trying to figure out how the man who used to read her bedtime stories became this stranger who smells like cigarettes and always seems sad. "Why did you leave us, Daddy?" she asked me during our last visit. We were at Chuck E. Cheese, surrounded by screaming kids and flashing lights, and she just laid it out there like she'd been practicing the question. I gave her the sanitized version I'd rehearsed with my therapist. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that the people they love. Sometimes families change. It wasn't her fault or Marcus's fault. I loved them very much. But 8-year-olds are smarter than we give them credit for. "Did you love us when you left?" she asked, and I couldn't answer because the truth was yes, I loved them desperately, but I loved the way Katie made me feel more than I loved being their father. And that's not something you tell a child. Katie moved to Phoenix 6 months after everything exploded. She sends me Christmas cards now, pictures of her new life with some guy who looks like a CrossFit instructor. She seems happy. Good for her. I'm genuinely glad one of us landed on their feet after burning down half the family tree. Jake and I haven't spoken since that night in my apartment. We pass each other at the grocery store sometimes, and he looks through me like I'm made of glass. His divorce finalized last year. He kept the house, but it's too big for one person, so he's selling it and moving closer to his sister in Colorado. Another casualty of my choices. Mom died 8 months ago. Lung cancer. Jake called to tell me about the diagnosis, and I asked if I could visit her in the hospital. "She doesn't want to see you," he said, and hung up. I found out about her death from the obituary in the paper. She'd raised me from the time I was 3 years old after our parents died, and I wasn't even allowed to say goodbye. The funeral was the worst day of my life. I stood in the back of the church, wearing a suit that didn't fit anymore because I'd lost so much weight, watching my entire family mourn together while I stood alone. Sarah saw me and nodded once, not unkindly, but like she was acknowledging a distant acquaintance. The kids didn't even notice I was there. I work at a call center now, selling insurance to people who hang up on me 40 times a day. It's a step down from the sales position I had when I was married, but that job required references, and I burned every professional bridge when I started showing up late and distracted because I was too busy thinking about Katie to focus on work. My coworkers are mostly 20-somethings who go out for drinks after work and talk about weekend plans I'm never invited to join. Not because they're mean, but because I'm a middle-aged man who radiates the kind of sadness that makes people uncomfortable. I'm the cautionary tale they'll tell their friends about. There's this guy at work who cheated on his wife and lost everything. Super depressing. I've been to therapy. Individual therapy, group therapy, therapy specifically for people who've committed infidelity. I can articulate now why I made the choices I made. Midlife crisis. Fear of aging. Taking my marriage for granted. Needing external validation. But understanding why doesn't undo anything. It doesn't bring back trust or love or family dinners or Christmas mornings or any of the thousand small moments that made life worth living. The therapists all say the same thing. Forgive yourself, learn from your mistakes, build a new life. But they don't understand that some mistakes are too big for second chances. Some betrayal so deep that the wound never really heals, it just scars over and aches when it rains. I date sometimes. Lonely women from dating apps who are looking for someone to split dinner checks and maybe hold hands during movies. But I'm damaged goods now, and they can sense it. The ones who stick around usually have their own catastrophic relationship history, and we circle each other like two broken satellites, never quite connecting. Last month I met a woman named Jennifer who seemed different. Kind. Stable. Divorced but not bitter about it. We had coffee, then dinner, then she invited me back to her place. While she was getting wine from the kitchen, I saw a framed photo on her mantle, her with two young boys, maybe 7 and 9, all three of them laughing at something off camera. I left while she was still opening the bottle. Called her from my car to say I was sorry, that I wasn't ready for this. Because looking at that photo, all I could think about was how I'd destroyed another family like theirs. How I'd taken two kids who trusted their father completely and taught them that love isn't permanent, that promises don't mean anything, that the man who's supposed to protect them might just walk away one day for someone who makes him feel young again. Jennifer texted me later asking if I was okay. I never responded. What was I supposed to say? That I'm the kind of man who ruins families? That I'm to anything good and decent? That she should run as fast as she can in the other direction? Some nights I drive by the old house, even though I know I shouldn't. David has put up a new fence, painted the front door blue instead of the red Sarah always loved. There's a basketball hoop in the driveway that wasn't there when I lived there. Sometimes I see Emma shooting baskets after school, and she's gotten so tall, so grown up. She moves like Sarah now, with that same purposeful grace. They look happy. All of them. Like a real family. Like what we used to be before I decided it wasn't enough. I keep thinking about that picture Emma drew in first grade, the one with our stick figure family holding hands in front of the crooked house. She probably doesn't even remember drawing it, but I think about it every day. 4 people who loved each other, captured in crayon on construction paper. Perfect in its simplicity. I had everything a man could want, and I traded it for 2 years of excitement that ended in a Denny's booth at 2 a.m., writing about the ruins of my life on my phone while strangers argue about car keys. The worst part isn't the loneliness, though that's bad enough. The worst part isn't the regret, though that follows me around like a shadow. The worst part is knowing that somewhere out there, my kids are learning to live without me, and they're probably better for it. They have a father figure who shows up, who keeps his promises, who loves their mother enough to stay. They have stability and trust and the kind of home where people mean what they say. All things I couldn't give them because I was too selfish, too weak, too convinced that I deserved to feel desired more than they deserve to feel secure. If you're reading this and thinking about cheating on your partner, let me save you some time. It's not worth it. Whatever you think you're missing, whatever excitement you think you need, whatever story you're telling yourself about how you deserve better or how this is different or how you can manage the situation without anyone getting, you're lying to yourself. You're not special. Your situation isn't unique. You're just another person who's about to trade everything real for something fake, everything permanent for something temporary, everyone who loves you for someone who probably doesn't. The bill always comes due, and it's always more than you can afford to pay. I'm typing this on my phone in a Denny's booth at 2:47 a.m. on my daughter's 10th birthday, and tomorrow I'll wake up alone in an apartment that smells like failure and microwave dinners. In 30 years, when Emma gets married, I won't walk her down the aisle. When Marcus graduates college, I won't be in the crowd cheering his name. When my grandchildren are born, they won't know who I am. This is what betrayal costs, everything that ever mattered, paid in full, no refunds, no returns. Don't be me.